Hi, everyone, and welcome to AWS On Air Earth Day, our special here talking about sustainability. And I'm really excited for this session. We have a partner with us. David is here from FlexZero. He's the head of products at FlexZero, and Aditi is an AWS specialist here from the sustainability side. I'm Art Baudo. I'm a principal product marketing manager at AWS. David, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey there, David Johnson. I'm a co-founder of FlexZero and actually ex-AWS. My background is kind of a mix of sustainability and also tech. So I did a PhD in environmental engineering and air quality, and then I've also done a range of different things having to do with like IoT, taking in data and building applications through AWS and a couple other positions.
Wow, so your entire background is in the sustainability space, it sounds like, even before just founding the company.
Sure is,
cool. Yeah. Aditi?
Thanks, Art. Thanks for the opportunity. Hi, I'm Aditi Suresh, Sustainability Strategist with AWS. I've been with AWS for less than 2 years, and in my current role, I'm part of our solutions and go-to-market sustainability team. So, bringing to market, scalable solutions in the sustainability domain and helping our customers achieve their sustainability outcomes, faster with lower effort and risk. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, no, thanks both of you for joining us. I mean, one, I think this is a great day to have the topic, number one, and number two, it's really important. I think, it's one of the top 5 decisions that CEOs are using to make decisions about what they do is sustainability. So I think that the importance of sustainability and how to talk to people about it is really, really powerful on the messaging here. So maybe the first thing we should do without further ado, a lot of people here know who and what AWS is, but before we go any further, David, why don't you give us a little intro about your own company, FlexZero?
Sure. So FlexZero is a software as a service platform or a company that is all built on AWS. So we're all in on AWS. We're available through Marketplace. And we have a platform that helps our customers who are different companies track their carbon emissions and then also reduce their carbon emissions. So that's kind of the key areas that we focus on. And some of our highlights in that, I would say, is that we're built on top of the Sustainability Insights framework, which is an AWS set of backend APIs that help with carbon accounting and carbon calculations. So that helps us as far as like building for the back end for it to be scalable and secure. So we're built on top of, and I'll probably mention that later, that's SIF, Sustainability Insights Framework, built on top of SIF, and we have our platform for carbon accounting.
So part of what I'm understanding is giving people information about their carbon footprint here, equipping them with knowledge and data in order to act on it and reduce that footprint, right? So step one is giving you information here. It sounds like that's the first thing that you're helping to do.
Yeah, exactly. A big piece of it is the tracking all of the different data. So you think of like for a company, there's all these different categories of things that you do that generate carbon emissions. That could be things from buying products, that could be things like burning fuel, taking car trips, all kinds of different categories. So this is really a flexible platform to track those different things so you can identify your hotspots and figure out where you can make a difference to reduce your emissions.
Awesome. Okay, so I think one of the first places that we wanted to start with this is a discussion about some of the role that digitization plays in this transformation. So Aditi, maybe you want to get us started with some of that.
Yeah, and I think the focus today is on the industrial sector. So I'd just like to highlight that this sector is probably one of the top energy consumers and the largest source of greenhouse gas emissions. So digital technology is going to play a critical role when it comes to reducing emissions, because we have to look at process optimization or energy efficiency opportunities, and technologies and like AWS services like AI/ML services can really enable organizations. And also, automation and integration of IoT platforms can really help mitigate, supply chain risk, reduce the manual lift, involved, in data collection and processing and analysis. So I think digitalization goes, hand in hand with the sustainability objectives as well.
Yeah, and maybe one of the things we're talking specifically today about the industrial space. Could you or David give us an example of some of these kind of what we mean when we talk about industrial? Because I like to define terms for people because not everybody thinks of it the same way. So I think we should make
Yeah,
sure that
it's a great
people
question. So
understand.
Yeah, it's a great point. So when we say industrial sector, these are like our heavy industries. You have like steel manufacturing, cement manufacturing, and when we look at sustainability or decarbonization initiatives, you have different emission sources that occur from the manufacturing processes. So you have like carbon dioxide emissions. Like 90% of the carbon dioxide emissions are actually released from the processing of cement, for example, or steel. So industrial sustainability transformation is basically looking at how we can decarbonize in the processes, and what initiatives we can take to meet the Paris climate objectives.
Yeah, I think this is a great point, by the way, as well, just on a random kind of note, because a lot of people think of some of these industrial things as, oh, that's happening over there, or that's someone else's problem. But when we quantify it and talk about it in terms of building materials and things like that, I mean, we are all consumers or users of this, right? The sidewalk in front of David's house and my house are concrete, right? Or the building that we're using, or the steel for a vehicle and stuff like that. So this is a mindset not just for this industrial usage. It does have direct applications, and we as consumers have some control over how things are built, and some of that messaging that's out there as well. And I love this idea of the digitization as well. So can we talk how AWS can help customers on that journey to accelerate sustainability? Because usage of these, as you mentioned, usage of things like concrete and steel are particularly heavy emitters of CO2 and other greenhouse gases.
Sure. There's two ways that AWS can partner with our industrial customers. So one way is we have carbon reduction opportunities for customers when they migrate their workloads to AWS. So AWS, when you migrate your workload from an on-prem data center, you can achieve an average of about 80% of carbon reduction. And this is because we are operating our data centers more efficiently. In fact, our data centers are 3.6 times more energy efficient compared to a median, data center that's being operated in the US. And
And can you
then,
say
yeah.
more about how that efficiency is achieved? Because it's my understanding, Aditi, that efficiency is achieved through a combination of factors. Our data centers, depending on where they are in the world, the percentage of renewable energy that they use, and also the efficiency that we have in terms of, our pledge around water resources and things like that.
Absolutely. It's basically our, through scale and our focus on innovation, we are able to achieve like higher resource utilization and energy efficiency compared to a typical on-prem data center. And also, we are on a path to power our data centers with 100% renewable energy by 2025, which is 5 years ahead of our 2030 commitment. And also, we have also introduced Graviton 3. So these are processors which use 60% less energy compared to our EC2 instances. So there's a lot of innovation we're building. We are also building our data centers with a lower carbon footprint. So the concrete that goes into our data centers, the steel that we are sourcing, that it's all low carbon. So there's a lot we are doing to reduce our scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions.
Yeah, and I think as we start to talk to how FlexZero here works, I really one of my favorite words when it comes to sustainability is efficiency as well. And I think a lot of things are about efficiency, how to efficiently and most efficiently utilize the resources that we have. There will be some pollution that has to happen occasionally, but how do you efficiently do something in the most efficient way? And I think that, the work you talk about with the data center and, our initiatives there is one area of efficiency, but you also mentioned Graviton and our other purpose-built processors that we have developed. It's how do you get the 60% savings is the architecture and being the most efficient with the architecture. We're not sacrificing performance on Graviton.
Not
As a matter of
at all,
fact,
yeah.
many Graviton instances, I'll turn this into a Graviton discussion in a second here, but I promise we'll move on. But the Graviton, many of those instances outperform others that are out there. I think one of the great things about this is the efficiency of it. So maybe we can talk a little bit about the sustainability insights framework, because I think that'll get us here into talking a little bit more about how FlexZero has interfaced with this
Absolutely.
framework.
Sure. And in fact, the AWS Sustainability Insights Framework was something we launched, in fact, last 3 weeks before in our AWS Solutions Library. So for those of you who are not aware, Solutions Library is our way of, is a place where we, curate and, we host vetted solutions. So be it AWS purpose-built services or our partner solutions for customers who wish to deploy something off the shelf. So Sustainability Insights Framework was launched because, we hear, we talk to our customers, and the main challenge they had was regarding, automating their carbon footprint measurement, trying to simplify their reporting, track progress towards their greenhouse gas emission reduction targets, and also derive insights to inform their decarbonization roadmap planning. So based on learnings from our customer engagements, we developed the AWS Sustainability Insights Framework. So it provides the foundational software building blocks for customers and partners to accelerate the design and implementation of carbon accounting applications. So FlexZero is our partner who's native to AWS, and their SaaS platform is powered by the Sustainability Insights framework. So, David here can demo the platform for us. And our main objective with developing the Sustainability Insights framework was to reduce time to value for our customers and partners. So with the help of this framework, FlexZero was able to save 6 months worth of development effort. So with that, yeah.
I was going to say it's probably worth noting also of sustainability of the cloud versus through the cloud. And so one of the things that we talk about earlier in this discussion is these different benefits that you get from moving over to AWS. Like you get that improved efficiency compared to on-prem, and benefits of things like Graviton. But the other side of this is, for depending on what your workloads are for your company, for many companies, most of their overall carbon emissions are from other things that they do that are outside of their cloud emissions. So it wouldn't be uncommon to see a company where their total company carbon emissions, only less than 5% is from their cloud usage, and the rest is from all these other activities that they do. And so this Sustainability Insights framework, and then also the FlexZero platform that we've built, are tools for helping you to calculate your emissions for your whole company.
I'm pretty excited about this. Well, one, I just want to, for those listening to us, we're going to probably start referring to the framework as SIF. Here, a Sustainability Insights Framework. It's a mouthful. So if we start doing that, and it's the Sustainability Insights Framework. Maybe David, you talked a little bit about what FlexZero does. Maybe we can talk a little bit more about the product here, and then get into the demo of how this can make a difference. Because you're right, the cloud is, for many companies, but a small portion of their total carbon footprint, and you have to kind of account for that entire footprint.
David. Be there. Yeah, sure. So the FlexZero platform, right, is a tool to help you track all the different activities that you do that generate carbon emissions, and there are a set of different guidelines, or many different sets of different guidelines for calculating your emissions, right? So there are things like the greenhouse gas protocol that will give you guidelines of how to calculate your emissions, and one of the tricky parts to that is that there are often many different ways to calculate your emissions based on the level of granularity of data you have. So an example would be if the only data that you easily had access to was the total dollars that you have on a certain category, like for example, on purchased materials, if you only had spend dollars, you could make a coarse prediction or estimate for your greenhouse gas emissions from spending on different products. Versus if you had the total mass or the total amount that you purchased, you could get a more granular estimate. And so what we see with different customers is that the more specific data they have, the better they can come up with an estimate for what is really their carbon emissions, and really finding out ways that they can improve their process or their actions to reduce their carbon emissions. So I'm gonna jump over to the demo shortly, but what we really try to focus on this tool is to give the customer and the user of the tool the ability to go in and click and actually create whatever calculations they want. So they can always use pre-baked calculations that we have built in, but you can customize them without using any code, so that you can actually create your own data pipelines without writing code to do your calculations for you.
So you can customize it as you get more information as well, right? Because you may not have enough information now to do some of that customization. You may need those assumptions, if you will. And then
Sure.
as you build that knowledge base, you can expand it. Yeah, but I think there's a great point. If we can, I think we've talked a bit about the demo. Let's bring it up here, David, and show people how to use this and show what we're talking about.
Sure. There we go. All right, so right. I'm gonna talk through the demo, and what I want to start off. So this is a dashboard showing. This is just like kind of the end state, and then I'm going to talk through that whole process of how we go through and actually customize calculations and reports and all that kind of thing for your specific use case. So starting with the dashboard, for carbon accounting, we're always thinking about scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. And so this dashboard shows a subset of information from this account. This is a demo account. Where you can look at things like what are your total carbon emissions for the year, or what are your scope 1, 2, and 3, or more granular to different categories of emissions over time, right? So you can break down your emissions, you can break them down by region, and lots of different ways to slice and dice the data. But I think the more interesting part of our platform and what we like to focus on is this ability to customize, right? And so I'll give as a kind of a use case study that we did with a customer. Is we had a customer that works in steel manufacturing, and they transport steel, and they had a certain course estimate for their total emissions from transporting that steel. So that's their starting point. Now this customer also has GPS data for every single trip that they're transporting the steel with. So they came to us and they asked us, what can you do with this GPS data? They give it to us in a format that we've never seen. So it was Excel files with different headers, not a specific format we've worked with before. Mm-hmm. And then they say, and come up with a calculation that would improve to give me more granular estimate than just distance. So let me jump in and kind of show you.
And while he's pulling that up, I just want to say a very common challenge is everyone has several Excel spreadsheets. So it's a very manual lift. It's a big resource burden. You have like 2 analysts in a company always pulling together Excel spreadsheets. So it's great that, on FlexZero, you have the ability to upload your Excel spreadsheet and, do bulk uploads and calculations. So that saves a lot of time and effort for sustainability teams.
Yeah, I think a lot of us shudder when someone says, don't worry, I have that in an Excel spreadsheet. It's ready to go. And the next topic is pivot tables. But yeah, but back to the example here. I also think that your example, even we're talking about the steel side here, but a lot of people have this kind of information when you have a fleet of vehicles or you're manning, an organization where you're sending people to different places, right? You get a lot of this GPS data too that you're talking about. So this is kind of I bet a lot of people are out there listening to us who have similar type of information and have a need to potentially process it, David.
Sure. And even other use cases where it's just they have data in some format and they want to do some calculation that is more granular than the typical calculation because it gives them the information that they need to make a change. So so I'll jump right into here. So we have a whole bunch of data, what we call data feeds, which are different pre-built calculations in here. And if you select one of the pre-built calculations, you're going to get a set of inputs to the calculations where you can basically take your Excel file, map the headers from your Excel file, which are on the left here, to the inputs of the equation. So that would be a case if you're using one of our pre-built equations that we have available. Now, in this case, for the GPS data, the customer was asking us for something that we didn't have pre-built. And so that's what I want to show in here is like how we worked with them to come up basically. What we did is we worked with a partner to come up with a equation that based their calculation based on distance traveled in I think it was 5 to 15 minute increments of GPS data, and then also considered things like road grade, and you can just put in there were conditions for like, is the vehicle idling versus is the vehicle traveling, things like that. And so I just want to very briefly show what this no-code calculation engine looks like, because this is most sustainability managers and myself in a past life of working heavily in sustainability is we're very used to working in Excel, right? Not writing code in Python. So we try to make this more of a style of a spreadsheet type style. So what I'm showing here first is I'm basically assigning dynamically in this. I'm creating a data feed and I'm putting in different inputs to the data feed. And then I'm saying I want to calculate an output. So I have these two inputs, just for an example, quantity and type of what's being input. And then I say the output will be CO2. Now, once I do that, I can type in equations here that is very similar to a spreadsheet. So as this example, I just wrote quantity times 10. Right. And so what this data feed would do if I were to save this is this would take an Excel or a CSV file and that has these headers, quantity and type. And then every row in that file, it's going to process it with this formula that I put in here. And so basically you can make as many inputs and outputs to customize this to exactly what your data type is and what your files are. And then you can also map your outputs to whatever KPIs you want to map your outputs to. And so in this case, I'm saying CO2, I'm going to map this to the total greenhouse gas emissions. And so this gives us the flexibility to create our own equations. And then when data comes in over time, which I think of our carbon activity data, I think of that like time series data, as that's coming in, it's going to be processed based on the configuration that the sustainability manager set up right here. So we have this example, one more second and then I'll jump over. We have this example with this calculation. We also have the ability to access things in the back end like emission factors, look up tables to enrich your data. So you can make this a very complicated equation or whatever level you want with if statements, decision logic, and pick your emission factors appropriately. So this is how we set this up for this GPS tracking problem. Sorry, I cut you off. Is that a DT?
No, I was just going to say, I was agreeing with you. And also, it sounds like, kind of as you get more complicated and you have a more complex fleet of vehicles or what have you doing different things, you have more data for different things happening. And, I never even was thinking until you mentioned it, the elevation and of the drive and stuff like that. I guess that uses a significant more amount of carbon if you're headed up a steep hill with your steel on the truck, right?
Yeah, and most standard equations might not consider these things. So the ability to have this flexibility to add this. So this is just kind of a snapshot. I don't want to dig into all the variables or anything, but we had for this GPS data feed, we had many different inputs, including things like road grade and then calculate many different outputs and map these to different KPIs. And then all of these together allows us to input data and for it to be processed in this custom way. So if I kind of jump over to this dashboard of what it looks like from the perspective of the user who actually inputs data, now I'm looking at specific entries for, you can think of these as GPS data per trip, right? And so this graph shows a data point for each trip where we put in the data and we get a total CO2 emissions. And so many different ways to get data into this system as well. You can either manually input into the system, and I kind of show what that looks like in a second, but we also have the ability to do this with APIs, or you can actually, through the app, you can request keys, AWS access keys, to do direct puts into an S3 bucket to process your data. So range of different ways to get the data in there. This is I just wanted to show this as well, is what it looks like if you were to manually enter data. So each of these rows represents one GPS timestamp, so like 5 minutes apart, something like that, right? And then based on what the sustainability manager said were the inputs and the data type required for each input, that's what options the end user has for what they can put in here. So in this case, for the vehicle type, they said you can pick from one of these types of vehicles, right? And then you can put in your data for all the other categories, like the amount of time, the speed, things like that. So as you define the data feed, you also define the requirements if you want to give access to users to manually input information as well.
This is pretty cool that people are able to both input the information, get feedback from you, and there's multiple systems to be able to put it in. Essentially, depending upon how you have the information, whether that's in an Excel that you mentioned, or you want to manually enter it in, it's a pretty simplistic way, as long as you have some of the information, to start doing the calculation here, right?
Sure. And then and then definitely as you get larger amounts of data, you probably are going to shift more to that automated input,
right.
And use APIs to put the data in versus, but the ability to do it in the app as well gives it so you can separate out different users for different groups within your company to input data specific to what they're doing. And also I want to drive in that although I'm going through this example for GPS, like you could make whatever data feed you want, you could track whatever KPIs you want. So jump over to the KPI tab. We have 240 different KPIs that we have pre-built in here that are common things that we track. And we track these because there are all kinds of different sustainability reports that have specific requirements. And this tool also will output data into reports, but you could also create your own KPI. So if you wanted to track something like water, waste, or something that has nothing to do with sustainability, maybe you just want to track miles on your car, right? You can track that with this tool. It's pretty open-ended as far as doing calculations, tracking data, and tracking it to a KPI.
And another thing I'm seeing here is, the auditability factor. So we have, all the frameworks require third-party verification of carbon footprint numbers and KPIs. So looking at how you set up your calculations and the data inputs, you're tracing end to end, all the right from your raw data to the factors applied. So I think that's also very important for the sustainability reporting space.
Yeah, it's not just enough in this world any longer to be able to do the calculation on your own. It's really important to be able to do the calculation, be able to report back and provide information, right? I mean, a lot of companies provide sustainability reports both on a public basis, but also to regulatory agencies and other things like that. And as we move into this world where more and more of that detail is going to be required, I think that something like this report from FlexZero will be really important. So I know we probably can spend even more and more time on the demo here for quite some time, but unfortunately for today, we don't have a lot more time left. Is there anything else, David, that we've missed that would be a key thing that a user of this system might need to learn that we haven't actually covered today at all?
Sure. Yeah, I'll just 30 seconds on reports. So we have the ability to create reports based on how you track data to your KPIs. So I showed all those KPIs and those are used to generate the reports. So you can do things like, you can say, I want to create a CDP report and once a month, or a specific type of report. Maybe you have like an annual report for your company that you want to generate yearly, right? So with reports, you have the ability to also upload a Word document and define variables. So just wanted to say that that kind of fits the rest of FlexZero, where it's very flexible, and we build it so that you can customize and create your own reports and track your own KPIs to create reports from Word documents.
Okay. Hey, I just want to thank you for your time today. And I want to thank Aditi as well for joining us today for this kind of Earth Day special here of AWS On Air, and really excited for everybody in the audience. I think this is a great example, a way for like not just the sustainability efforts that AWS is doing, but also working with partners such as FlexZero to make sure that we can help impart some of that on everyone out there. Because as David mentioned, I think earlier as well, not all of this is just in the cloud. There's so much of this, we can use the cloud to help do the calculation as well for data that's happening in, in our example here of steel driving or moving it around or processing it. So I want to thank both of you for joining us today, and thanks everybody for joining.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you so much.